Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a powerful moment of revelation. Today, I want to talk to you about one of the most misunderstood dynamics in human connection, avoidant attachment, and how someone who runs from closeness might actually be falling deeper for you than you could ever imagine. We often think love is loud, that it's full of words, grand gestures, and romantic declarations. But with someone who has an avoidant attachment style, love is quiet, subtle, conflicted, hidden beneath layers of self-protection. But make no mistake, it's there. So today I'm going to share 6 key signs, powerful indicators that tell you an avoidant isn't just interested. They're secretly in love with you, and if you spot even one of these, don't doubt it, you're making a deep impact on their guarded heart. Let's begin. When an avoidant starts letting you into their private world, that's not a casual act, it's a monumental shift. You see, avoidants live behind walls, strong, silent, reinforced walls. They've spent years, maybe decades, crafting defenses against vulnerability. Why? Because intimacy to them equals danger. It feels like a risk to their freedom, their emotional balance, even their sense of identity. So when they start inviting you into those inner rooms they've kept locked, when they slowly let you see the real, unfiltered version of who they are, it's a direct signal they're falling in love even if they'd never say it aloud. It might begin subtly. They tell you about a difficult moment from their past, something they never talk about, or they show you a favorite place that calms them down, a personal ritual, a scar, a wound, a dream. These aren't shared out of obligation. They're signs of trust carved into the conversation like rare gems. Maybe they talk about their childhood or share an old photo. Maybe they open up about something they're scared of, failure, abandonment, not being enough. These aren't small things. For someone who thrives on keeping their world compartmentalized, every moment of openness is a crack in the armor, and every crack is a sign they're letting love in. You may notice that they start letting you witness their off moments, their awkwardness, their tired days, their unfiltered thoughts. They no longer feel the need to present a perfect version of themselves. That's vulnerability. That's a deeper form of emotional intimacy than even words can express. Avoidants don't invite just anyone into that space. They let very few people in. So when it's you, it means something, and let's not ignore one of the biggest tells, access. They begin to give you access to parts of their schedule, their home, their thoughts. Maybe you're invited over more often. Maybe you're allowed to see the creative work they keep private. They start to make room for you both literally and emotionally, and here's what's critical to understand. They may not verbalize what's happening. Don't expect a grand speech. You'll feel it in their actions. You'll feel it in how the doors that used to be locked slowly creak open. It's quiet, but it's powerful. In a world where they've built safety by staying in control, letting someone inside is one of the most courageous acts they'll ever do. So if you find yourself in that sacred space where they expose parts of themselves they usually guard with everything they've got, realize this. You are not just another connection. You are someone they are secretly, deeply, and maybe even reluctantly falling for, and that, my friend, is how love begins for someone who's spent their life running from it. Another major sign that an avoidant is secretly in love with you is when they pull away, but always come back stronger. Now, this part can feel incredibly confusing. One moment they're engaged, connected, even affectionate, and the next, it's like they've vanished into thin air. Maybe they stop replying, cancel plans, become emotionally distant. And if you don't understand their attachment style, it feels like rejection. It feels like abandonment. But what's actually happening inside them is far more complex and deeply human. Avoidants are wired to feel overwhelmed when emotional intimacy gets too close too fast. For them, closeness triggers an unconscious alarm system. Even if they enjoy being with you, even if they feel safe, the deeper feelings of vulnerability can cause a surge of panic. They think, what if I lose myself? What if I get hurt? What if I depend on this person and they leave? And so, they retreat, not because they don't care, but because they care so much that their brain needs space to recalibrate. But here's where you know it's love. They come back, and not just casually. They return with more attention, with more depth, with more commitment. Maybe they text after a few days of silence. Maybe they apologize, or they subtly slide back into your world, testing if you're still there. It might not be a big romantic gesture, But the fact that they return after emotional shutdown, that's a huge green flag in their language. You'll notice that after every retreat, they open up a little more. Their returns are not just about resuming where things left off, they're actually steps forward. Maybe they become more honest about their fears, maybe they show up with more consistency. That back and forth cycle is their version of growth. Every comeback means they're learning how to stay, how to trust, how to navigate love without losing control. What's important is that you don't take the pullback personally. It's not a measurement of your worth. It's a reflection of their internal battle. And if they're choosing to come back after the storm, they're choosing you over fear, over distance, over their instinct to self-protect. That's not weakness, that's strength. That's love trying to break through survival. In the world of avoidance, coming back means everything. The third unmistakable sign that an avoidant is secretly in love with you is when they start remembering the smallest, most insignificant details about you, the ones you didn't even think mattered. You might talk about something once in passing, like your favorite song from childhood, a specific way you like your coffee, the name of your first pet. And weeks later, they reference it casually, and in that moment you realize they were listening. Not just hearing you, but absorbing you, observing you, holding your world in their mind piece by piece. Avoidants aren't typically verbal processors. They don't gush, they don't overexpress, and they rarely initiate deep emotional conversations. But when they really care, they tune in with intensity, quiet intensity. Their mind becomes a vault of your preferences, your quirks, your dreams, and they may not say, "I love you," but they'll show up with your favorite snack when you've had a long day. Or they'll bring up something that made you laugh months ago just to see you smile again. Why does this matter so much? Because avoidants typically focus inward. They're not scanning the emotional landscape of others all the time. They're managing their own space, their own energy. So when they begin to center you in their awareness, when they make space in their tightly guarded mental world for your details, that's not random, that's emotional investment. You might not see it right away. It might not be loud or obvious, but it's deeply intentional. They're studying you not to control, not to manipulate, but to understand. Because understanding you makes them feel safer with you. And feeling safe, that's the bridge they need to start falling in love. Sometimes they'll even surprise you with how much they recall. They might say something like, "You mentioned your grandmother used to bake that," or "Isn't that the movie you said makes you cry every time?" And your heart might skip a beat, not because of the words, but because of the meaning behind them. They were present, even in silence, even in their distance. They were paying attention, and in the world of avoidant love, that's no small thing. That's a quiet declaration, "You matter to me." They may not give you compliments every day, they may not be poetic or emotionally expressive. But when they start collecting your essence in their memory, storing it like treasure, using it to connect with you in their own subtle way, know this, they're not just curious, they're not just being polite. They're falling. The fourth powerful sign that an avoidant is secretly in love with you is when they show up for you when it really matters, especially during your moments of need. Now, let me be clear, avoidants don't offer help easily. They protect their time, their space, and their energy like sacred ground. So when they step out of that comfort zone to support you, it's not a routine gesture. It's a profound signal of emotional investment. Here's what usually happens. You're going through something, a crisis, a bad day, an unexpected challenge, and before you can even ask, they offer to help. Maybe they don't say the words, "I care," but their actions scream it. They pick you up without hesitation. They run errands for you. They find solutions to problems you haven't even figured out how to solve. And they do it in a calm, no-nonsense way, almost like they're trying not to draw attention to it. But don't miss the meaning behind it. This is their love language in action. Avoidants are uncomfortable with emotional chaos, but when they're in love, they'll walk right into your mess just to stand beside you. You'll notice that they become surprisingly dependable when you're struggling. They won't always know what to say, but they'll show up, and that kind of presence from someone who usually avoids entanglement speaks volumes. It's their way of saying, "Even though I fear closeness, I can't stay away when you need me." What's interesting is that they might even pretend it's no big deal. They may brush it off with, "I was just nearby," or "It's fine, I didn't have anything else to do," but don't be fooled. They made a choice, a conscious one, and the decision to be near you when it's inconvenient, when it costs them effort and energy. That's not casual, that's emotional priority, and watch how they behave during those moments. They may be awkward, unsure, even silent, but they're there. They might not wrap you in a big hug, but they'll bring what you need. They'll drive you home. They'll stay up just to make sure you're okay. That's how love leaks out of the cracks in their guarded armor, not through words, but through service, through action, through presence. You may even begin to realize that, slowly, they're reprogramming themselves for you. Showing up is a step into emotional discomfort for them. And if they're doing that consistently, if they're choosing you even when it's hard, then you're not just important to them, you're essential. In the silent world of an avoidant, showing up is often louder than "I love you." Another undeniable sign that an avoidant is secretly in love with you is when they start planning around you, even if they don't say it directly. Avoidants are fiercely independent. They value control over their time, their choices, and most importantly, their future. So when someone like that begins to adjust their life in subtle ways to include you, that's not a coincidence. That's emotion-driving behavior. They won't always declare, "I see you in my future." That's too vulnerable, too open, but they'll hint at it. They'll say things like, "Maybe we could try that new place next month," or "I've been thinking about taking a trip. Wanna come?" At first glance, these might seem casual, but they're not. These are quiet blueprints. These are moments where they're testing the waters of long-term connection without calling attention to it. You might notice they ask about your schedule more than usual. They want to know when you're free. They start considering your preferences when making decisions. Maybe they postpone a trip because they want to spend time with you. Maybe they delay a personal project just to be available. These choices are small but significant. They're reshaping their rhythm around your presence, and that's massive for someone who normally protects their routine at all costs. What's more revealing is when they bring you into conversations about their own future. They talk about moving to a new place and they ask what you think. They discuss a career goal and they look for your reaction. This is emotional investment disguised as curiosity. It's their way of saying, "I see you in this, I want you in this." They might not spell it out, but their planning is no longer solo. It's becoming shared. Even their behavior begins to shift. Maybe they start syncing their habits with yours. You like early mornings. They start adjusting their routine. You're into health. Suddenly they care about what they eat. These aren't forced changes. They're subtle alignments that happen when someone's heart begins to revolve around another person. And the most beautiful part, they probably won't even realize they're doing it at first, but their actions will show you, and if you watch closely, you'll see a once self-contained person opening the door to the possibility of building something with you. Not just now, but later, down the road into the unknown. For an avoidant, planning is vulnerability. It's surrendering some of their future to the influence of someone else, and when they're willing to do that, even in small ways, it's because their heart has already decided you're not temporary. The sixth and final sign that an avoidant is secretly in love with you is when they start showing signs of jealousy, even if they do everything in their power to hide it. Now this one is tricky because avoidants pride themselves on staying cool, detached, and in control. They don't want to appear needy or possessive, but when they care deeply, when they're emotionally invested, jealousy slips through the cracks. Whether they like it or not, it won't always look like classic jealousy. They won't confront you directly. They won't ask, "Who's that guy?" or "Are you seeing someone else?" Instead, it might come out sideways. Maybe they get a little cold after you mention another person. Maybe their tone shifts when you talk about spending time with someone they don't know. Or maybe they suddenly go silent, withdraw for a bit, or act strangely indifferent. But underneath that surface behavior is a whirlwind of emotion they're trying hard to suppress. You see, avoidants don't want to give away their emotional position. Admitting jealousy would mean admitting attachment, and for them, that's terrifying. It exposes vulnerability, so they hide it, mask it, rationalize it. They might even pretend they're completely unbothered, but pay attention to their energy, their body language, the way they suddenly start paying more attention to you, the way they check your social media, ask subtle questions, or try to regain your focus after you've shifted it elsewhere. Here's what's really happening. Jealousy for an avoidant is a panic response to emotional threat. They've been working so hard to stay emotionally regulated to avoid getting too close, and suddenly the thought of losing you sends a wave of fear through them. A fear they didn't expect, a fear that reveals just how much you've come to mean to them. Sometimes they might even try to test your feelings, they might pull back to see if you notice, or they might talk about someone they spent time with just to gauge your reaction. These aren't games, they're unconscious defenses, a way of trying to protect their heart while figuring out if you're just as invested as they are. And here's what you need to know: if an avoidant is jealous, they're emotionally attached. Period. They don't get jealous over people they view as casual. Their emotional wiring won't allow that. If their energy changes when your attention shifts, if they seem off when you mention someone else, if they start acting like they're fine, but everything about their presence says otherwise, they're not just interested, they're emotionally entangled. In their world, where distance is safety, jealousy is the one emotion that betrays their secret. Because it reveals that someone has gotten close enough to matter, and when that someone is you, you've cracked their emotional code. When we look at love through the lens of an avoidant, everything changes. What seems distant may actually be depth in disguise. What feels cold could be careful consideration, and what looks like detachment might actually be a heart learning how to open, slowly, tenderly, and against all its conditioning. We often expect love to arrive with clarity and confidence, but for someone who fears intimacy, love is a confusing storm. It doesn't come in declarations, it comes in discomfort. And understanding this is the key to unlocking a connection that could be more real than anything you've ever experienced. Each of the 6 signs we explored today tells a unique story, one of a guarded soul trying to navigate vulnerability. When an avoidant lets you into their inner world, it's not just an act of trust, it's a deep emotional breakthrough. When they pull away and then return with more intent, they're not playing games. They're confronting their fear of being consumed by love. When they start remembering the smallest details about you, they're holding you close in the only way they know how, with quiet devotion. These are not just patterns of behavior, they are clues to a heart in transformation. They're acts of service when you're in need, their subtle effort to include you in future plans, and their hidden signs of jealousy. These are the moments where their emotional armor begins to crack, and it's not weakness. It's strength, the kind that comes from choosing to stay when everything inside them wants to run. These signs show you that love doesn't always wear a smile. Sometimes it wears hesitation. Sometimes it hides behind silence. But it's love nonetheless, raw, fragile, and deeply human. Understanding the language of an avoidant partner requires more than just patience. It requires emotional intelligence, compassion, and a steady belief that the quiet signs are often the loudest. Because when someone who's spent their whole life avoiding emotional exposure starts to show up, remember, recall, and return, they're not just dipping their toe into connection, they're diving into the unknown for you. And that's a risk they wouldn't take unless their feelings were very real. So if you see these signs in someone's actions, even if they never say the words, don't underestimate what's happening beneath the surface. Their love may not look like what you expected. It may not sound like the movies. But it is love shaped by fear, expressed through action, and delivered in the only way they know how, with sincerity behind silence, with effort behind every hesitation, and with devotion written between the lines of every moment you share. Your awareness of these signs could be the bridge that helps them cross from guardedness to true emotional freedom. Thank you for staying with me through this journey. Keep learning, keep listening, and above all, keep loving wisely. Take care, and goodbye for now. Thank you so much for joining me on this powerful journey today. Your time, your attention, and your willingness to grow in emotional awareness mean everything. Understanding the heart of an avoidant is not just about decoding someone else. It's about deepening your own compassion, your strength, and your connection to love that's real, raw, and rare. If today's message resonated with you, let it guide your next step with clarity, not confusion. Let it help you love with patience, but never lose yourself. And most importantly, let it remind you that even the most guarded hearts can open when they feel safe, seen, and truly valued. Stay strong, stay self-aware, and never stop learning the language of real connection. With deep gratitude, thank you and goodbye for now. Until next time, take care of your heart And theirs?